Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and of course, continuing on with the Superman review marathon. Well, yes. Yep, that's right. You knew what was next, and here we are now. Yeah, because, now entering into the era where in the 1980s, after, the first two Superman films, they did excellent. Well, this is where, the Salkinds, boy, 'cause, the mistakes they made, and so on, and I'm sure as you know, it would come back to bite/haunt them, for sure. And with Richard Lester returning to the director's chair to take on/helm the third installment. And and I won't deny that, sadly, of course, it's not the best Superman film. I mean, I don't know, because I feel like, and from what I know, and in my opinion, it's not as god-awful as, say, the next one, until, I get to that one. But, overall, I mean, having done a rewatch of this, sadly it is what it is. It could have been a heck of a lot better, but so that's right. Continuing on with the Superman review marathon from 1983, this is Superman 3. Like I literally just said, sadly it is what it is. Maybe it could have turned out, better. It could have, because, I knew exactly what this movie was trying to do, its storyline, but only if it had, been somewhat better. Maybe having one of the main co-stars be not that much goofy and such, because, they pretty much just wanted him to just be funny, because that's what he was known for. You know who I'm talking about, but until I mention him, And knowing the behind-the-scenes and facts about Superman 3, how this turned out, and with what the Salkinds did, and with Richard Lester, one of their mistakes was having fired Richard Donner, because, with what Richard Donner had brought to the first Superman, and with what he had brought in with how much he had filmed Superman 2, and until his version would see the light of day, And in fact, what Donner and, his fellow writer, Tom, what's his last name, they had plans and considerations for, what they wanted to do for a third Superman film, a third one, and maybe possibly do a fourth one. But the first things I have to say about it, again, I didn't think it was that bad. And again, I know that it's not the best. I'm kind of basically just going back and forth, sharing my first thoughts and talking about some background. But let me talk about the first things I have to say, then I'll continue with the rest of the background, just a little more. Okay, so the first things I have to say about Superman 3. Because, having seen this a few times, and again, having done a rewatch, I understand that, it's not the best. It really isn't. But it's not really god-awful. Not even that close to then say the fourth one. Now, about the fourth one, well, until I get to that, but with Superman 3, again, I liked the idea of where this movie was going. And especially, there were a few good things to come from this third Superman film. Well, most prominently, Christopher Reeve. Even though him being in the next two Superman films, 3 and 4, he never disappointed playing the titled character. And man, because with what happens to Superman at a certain point in this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Christopher Reeve did a spot-on job on that. And as for, say, might as well go ahead and mention him, Richard Pryor, because, the fact that Richard Pryor, who we knew best known for being such a hilarious man, being right up there with some of the other comedic geniuses like Robin Williams and Peter Sellers. Need I go on? The fact that he had also been a Superman film, and what got him to be a part of the third installment was when, the producers were aware about his excitement for the second installment, when he shared his excitement for seeing the second installment on Johnny Carson. And that's what would lead to Pryor to be considered for, being a part of the third film. I think that Richard Pryor in the third film, he's okay. He was okay for me. And, because how can we not have a little bit of funniness from Richard Pryor? Had the movie gone in the direction where Pryor, he wanted to have his character be serious, he wanted to play a serious role in this film, but sadly, he was told to be funny. But, just at the same time, it wasn't Richard Pryor's fault, it wasn't Christopher Reeve's fault, I also think that, because, with the main antagonists, they were okay. It had some, few good funny moments. Too much, obviously, and that's thanks to Lester. No hard feelings on him. It had some good action, some okay visual effects. They weren't too bad. Especially because, the flying shots, obviously, being fantastic. The suspense and certain things that happen here and there were not that bad. And a certain moment that I am so far mentioning where, a moment that happens with Superman that just is, mind-blowing. And with what these antagonists are doing in this film, this whole thing about computers and technology, and there's a supercomputer, that basically being another antagonist of the movie. And, with new characters that step in, obviously from Pryor, the villains, and Lana Lang, they did pretty good too. I just think that, for Superman 3, it should have, turned out maybe much better. Like I said, I think that where the movie was going was not a bad idea with its storyline, but if the writing had been much better, and so on, And had if Richard Donner not been fired and have done the third installment and then the fourth, well, they would have been totally different Superman films than how they did finally turn out. So, overall, Superman 3, it sadly is what it is. I don't think it's that bad, and maybe you guys are on the same page too. And again, not as bad as, say, the next installment. This was just the beginning of things going downhill for the franchise. Alright, so with the first things I've had to say about Superman 3 out of the way, as always, for me, read the description / the story. Computer programmer Gus Gorman is hired by financial tycoon Ross Webster to seize control of a weather satellite and annihilate Columbia's coffee crop. Literally. When Superman manages to thwart the plan, Webster commands Gorman to use the satellite to locate Kryptonite, the Man of Steel's mortal weakness. But a missing unknown element in the Kryptonite, replaced by Gorman with tar, causes an unintended side effect when presented to Superman. So because that's the description / the story, and and it doesn't really mention anything about the supercomputer. But anyways. Alright, so, okay, and continuing with what I was saying about the background and the fun facts, because, like I said, with the Salkins doing the third Superman film, Richard Lester once again returning to the director's chair, and because with what was brought into the third installment, and again, as I said, new faces that step in from, most prominently Richard Pryor, Gene Hackman, refused to return for the third installment, especially since, obviously after the firing of Richard Donner, Margot Kidder actually, doesn't have that much to do in this movie as Lois Lane. But until I get to Lois Lane. Yeah. And, well, not to mention that Richard Pryor, he already had an experience working with the director of the first Superman film, Donner, because, well, if any of you know this, Pryor was in this film directed by Dick Donner, which being called Toy. Yeah. And if you know about that movie, because, yeah, it's pretty interesting and funny, so, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and it's great to see that Pryor had got to work with, the guy who directed the first Superman film, so, yeah, that must have been something for Pryor, because obviously he would have known, with having worked with Donner, he directed the first Superman film. Yeah. But anyways, so yeah. And, well, because anything else to say in the background? Well, I mean, just, when the film itself came out, sadly, turned out to be a disappointment. Not what everyone was expecting, so, yeah. Alright, so, yeah, that's pretty much it, and all I can say on the background. So, let's dive into the film itself, break it down. So, yeah. And, yeah, I just, because again, I know that this movie is not the best, and I don't think there's really any point for me to really break it down, because, let's face it, because I think even, most prominently, say, the Nostalgia Critic and some of you, finding this pretty boring to follow. So, yeah. Alright, but anyway, so, well, literally the way this movie opens is, we see one of the main characters, Gus Gorman, being played by the late Richard Pryor, and unfortunately, Gorman is in a state where he's not able to find a job and so on, but that is until he discovers and takes an interest on doing some computer stuff, on this box of cigarettes and such, well, the opening credits, because, well, as we all know, when it comes to the Superman films, I mean, most of them, most notably the first two, opening with, the credits floating in space, and with the amazing Superman score that was written by John Williams, but in Superman 3, because even what the Nostalgia Critic, said about the opening credits, I'm sure as you know, in his top 11 list of the dumbest Superman moments, because the opening credits, what the, because, and not that I'm complaining on the opening credits for Superman 3, it's just, and because, Richard Lester, this is where he fully directed a Superman film, because keep in mind, with the second Superman film, a good majority of it was filmed by Donner, but the rest being filmed by Lester, and shots that Lester did incorporating comedy and funny moments. And boy, in Superman 3, there's a whole lot. I mean, look, sure, there's a lot of funny moments and slapstick and such, but at the same time, Superman 3 still does deliver some serious, intense moments, so, but just point being on the opening credits of Superman 3, because a lot of slapstick that happens, because out in the streets of Metropolis, this blonde lady walking through, and a guy getting distracted, hitting a pole, this girl on skates hits a hot dog cart, and everything just goes ballistic and crazy, some stuff tumbling here and there, wind-up toy penguins, being let loose, one being set on fire, scaring a little dog, a dog that's, with a blind man, chases after the little dog, and the blind man mistakes a machine for the yellow lines on the road for his dog, and just... Man, just so much happening in the opening credits. And as the Nostalgia Critic best put at it, it's like the dominoes of human misery, and even with the mentioning of Mousetrap. If you think about those games, then that's a good way to sum up what the opening credits for Superman 3 are like. Alright, and what also happens during the opening credits? Well, because, with more chaos happening on the side of the street, then, say, at one point, like a car hitting a fire hydrant, and it starts to build up water. I mean, I mean, does it make sense? Because it hit a fire hydrant, so that explains with water somehow making its way into the car. It fills up, and the passenger almost going to drown. And Clark Kent, whom we see, and he gets a few funny moments here. And, you know, another thing is because, and I'm sure as you know, because Richard Lester not having the full understanding and knowledge of the character of Superman and how the character of Superman is to be specifically done, but you know, still, at the same time, Christopher Reeve, he still did good as Clark Kent / Superman in the third installment and then in the fourth installment. Just, yeah. But yeah, and of course, yeah, Christopher Reeve, once again as Clark Kent / Superman, seeing what's going on and getting into a photo booth, and yeah, pictures were going off as he was, you know, changing his wardrobe from Clark Kent to Superman. A little boy and his mom came up, and yeah, Superman coming out and looking at the pictures. All of them except for one is where he is Superman. You know, he keeps the other photos and gives the one where, yeah, he's in the Superman getup to the little boy. And then Superman saving the passenger, the guy behind the wheel of the car, almost about to drown, and yeah. And Jimmy Olsen happened to be there, seeing everything that was going on. And Jimmy Olsen, once again being played by Mark McClure. Yeah, I think I got his last name right. And yeah, he didn't even take a photo. And even when, like, say, yeah, his, you know, Perry White, once again being played by Jackie Cooper, you know, complains to Jimmy that, you know, he didn't take a photo of Superman with what was going outside. Just, yeah. And coming back to Gus Gorman, because, yeah, we see him doing some computer stuff and applying for Websco. Yeah, Websco Industries. And, yeah, and just so happens that, well, this company, Websco Industries, you know, being owned by the film's main antagonist, but until I get to him in just a moment. Yeah, and it turns out that Gus is a genius. He's a master at working on computers. And even when at one point he does a computer, you know, scam or something just like that, which gets the attention of the guy who runs Websco Industries. Yeah. But yeah, and, well, at the Daily Planet, because, yeah, I just mentioned Perry White and Lois Lane, once again, the late Margot Kidder. Well, because what's happening at the Daily Planet? Well, because there's a moment where Jimmy, Lois, and Perry are talking about, you know, the guy who runs Websco Industries, which being, of course, Ross Webster, and he had just won the award, humanitarian, you know, stuff like that. Just, you know what I'm talking about, yeah. And, yeah, and as I said, Perry White complaining to Jimmy that he didn't take a photo of what happened earlier with Superman being present. And, of course, Clark Kent stepping in. And, well, two things that are happening and that are mentioned. Well, Superman / Clark Kent is going to be going back to Smallville for a high school reunion, and Jimmy Olsen actually tags along with Clark on this, making their way to Smallville. And as for Lois Lane, well, because, yeah, again, not being in this movie that much. There's not that much with Margot Kidder as Lois Lane in this, because Lois Lane mentions about her going to be taking a vacation. She's basically going to be taking a vacation to Bermuda. Yeah, so, and the next time we see Lois Lane, when she comes back from her vacation, is near the end of the movie. Literally. And fun fact about why Margot Kidder is not in Superman 3 that much. Well, because there are two things about this. And, you know, I mean, I think these two reasons, these two things that have most prominently been brought up as to why there's not that much of Lois Lane in the third film. Well, one, the Salkinds felt that, you know, the romance story between Lois and Clark, you know, was already done, and because with what happened at the end of Superman 2, like, yeah, and, you know, no reason to continue that, so, yeah, and, you know, having Superman / Clark Kent in the third installment with a new love interest. However, for Margot Kidder, Well, she felt as though that the reason why she is not in the third installment that much was because of, how she felt, and her making comments about Donner being fired, directing the Superman film. So, yeah. And she wasn't careful on that. And even with what she explained, and, because, she didn't hide what she had to say about them hurting her poor beloved Donner. Because, keep in mind, when Donner worked on the first two Supermans, there was really a sense of family, and, everybody having such a great time together, and being directed by Donner, and it was an unpopular thing for the cast and crew when Donner was fired, and Christopher Reeve, of course, being upset about it too, but he was careful. He was very careful on the whole thing of Donner being fired, and Margot, not that much, and that's the politics in the movie business for you. So, but those two things, it's hard to say, and it's hard to tell, really, because on the one hand, I guess it's understandable and it makes sense with what the Salkind said, that, there was no point for Lois to have that much, because, the whole romance thing between Lois and Clark had already been done, etc., and with what Margot said, that's possible, but, and if, you guys can figure that on your own too, because, it's up to debate and so on, but just, by the way, because, speaking of the Salkinds, because, as said, before in, the last two reviews, because, the Salkinds really just up in arms with, what they wanted to bring to the Superman films, and, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about the background, because, the Salkinds, because, one of them had an idea for doing this story where, it would involve Brainiac, Supergirl, and it seemed pretty interesting, but Warner Brothers having turned it down, but, and I'm sure you know about this, just thought I'd quickly mention that, but, and we ended up with this. Imagine if, how one original idea for the third installment, how that would have turned out to be, but eventually, because, we would see Supergirl on the big screen, because the Salkinds, wanting to see Supergirl come to life in her very own solo movie, and that's another story, but which actually, it came out, just 1 year after the third Superman film, Alright, but anyway, so back to the movie, because, with Lois going to Bermuda, for vacation, and Clark, along with Jimmy, tagging along, making their way to Smallville, and because, with them at Smallville, and, Clark soon going to be attending to the high school reunion at Smallville, something happens at Smallville, at this chemical plant, where, something goes wrong, there's a fire, and, of course, just in the nick of time, Clark happening to be there, and of course, going as Superman, and, helping out with what's going on at the chemical plant, because, fires erupting, and also Jimmy sneaking in to get some photos, and for the Daily Planet, risking his own life to take the photos. As long as he's being careful. And, Superman helping out with what's going on, and, with the firemen, and there's one moment where the firemen are unable to unleash water to take out the fire. And there's one moment where Superman, helps evacuate some of the people, but except for one, because this one guy inside the chemical plant refuses to leave because there's acid, literal acid, which being referred to as Beltris acid, I might be mispronouncing it, but again, you know me sometimes, And it's basically a volatile chemical, So, he can't, the guy can't abandon his post with the acid, and, and because the firemen are having difficulty trying to get water to be sprayed and to take the fire out, well, Superman takes it upon himself, and with the mentioning of this lake, that yeah, the firemen won't have time to get over there to get some water from this lake, but Superman, of course, will be very quick at it, and thus he collects some water from this lake, like freezing like almost the entirety of the lake, but just like the very top of it. And yeah, it freezes up and lifts it up in this giant piece of ice. And I think that was pretty cool, don't you think? I mean, it's possible. It's totally possible for Superman doing something like that, don't you think? Just yeah, and well, because taking it to take care of, the fires erupting at the chemical plant. And by the way, because Dr. McLean, yeah, I believe that's him, because, yeah, Dr. McLean being played by Barry Demon, yeah. So, yeah, and, yeah, because I presume, yeah, he's the guy, because, who would not abandon his post with the acid, just, yeah. And at a certain point, the acid was it was starting to turn red, and, well, seemed like that, yeah, it was soon about to erupt or something. But just in the nick of time, Superman bringing in this huge ice that is, water from the lake, dropping it, and it melts, and yeah, it basically, like, provides rain, and it rains on top of the chemical plant building, and putting out the fires, and yeah, that was a really good heroic moment from Superman. And even, there was one point where Jimmy, and as the fires were still continuing, he did get wounded, and yeah, he even, like, broke one of his legs, but of course Superman, helping Jimmy, and actually because, yeah, Jimmy had to go back to Metropolis because of his injuries, but at least, he still showed up at the Daily Planet, bringing in the photos that he took. So, yeah. But anyways, so, after all that, and I think, the sequence where Superman was helping, take down the fires of the chemical plant wasn't bad, just, And to name some of the cast members that we saw at the start of this movie, because, yeah, the opening scene where, yeah, poor Gus having trouble with, employment, because, yeah, the unemployment clerk being played by Nancy Roberts, and those that were in the streets of Metropolis for the opening credits, the blind man being played by Graham Stark, Penguin Man, selling the penguins, the wind-up toy penguins, being played by Henry Wolf, and Man in Cap, that's literally what he's credited, where he gets a lot of stuff slapped in his face and so on, like a piece of pie, for example. Man in Cap being played by Gordon Rollings, yeah. Bank robber, because, yeah, bank robber popping in, and the bank robber being played by Peter Weir, and there was literally a mime. When all that chaos came to an end, yeah, to finish it off, there was a mime, and the mime being Justin Case. Yeah, because that's his literal name. Yeah, Justin Case. And there's also Dignified Gent, yeah, being played by Bob Todd, who got some paint splattered on him, and with that the bucket of paint, yeah. And a delivery man being played by Terry Camereller. I don't even think I'm getting his last name right, but yeah. All right, but continuing with the movie, because, yeah, coming back to Gus, because, yeah, with what was discovered of Gus, what he did with the computers, well, this getting the attention of the main antagonist, and whom is responsible for running this company that Gus is a part of, Websco. Yep. The founder of Websco / the antagonist, Ross Webster, being played by Robert Vaughn. Yes, good actor. And I'm sure you've known him from other great pieces of material he's been in. Yeah. So, Ross Webster, being aware of what Gus did, and not turning in Gus, but having Gus join him to do something devious for him. Yeah. And the two other antagonists, well, yeah, You know, two of them, mainly one of them being the sidekick of Webster. Yeah. We have Ross's sister, Vera, being played by Anne Ross, and which, by the way, Anne Ross was the voice dub of Ursa in the first two Superman films. Yeah. And she's done a lot more than that, and she had done a lot of comedy before doing this, but yeah. And man, Vera being a very aggressive, like, you know, antagonist, you know, character in Superman 3, just, you know. And we also have, yeah, the sidekick of Ross, Lorelei, if I'm saying her name right, being played by Pamela Stevenson, yeah. And Lorelei, again, I might be butchering her name some, but, you know, again. Yeah, because we did see her at the start of the opening credits for Superman 3. And yeah, and, you know, just having this voice and, you know, the way she talks, just, you know, you've seen the movie, just, you know. I wouldn't say, at least in my opinion, her voice was annoying. I didn't find it annoying. Maybe you did, but just, yeah. But she was, I mean, you know, the antagonists, they were okay. Because, yeah, like I said, you know, early on, the antagonists for Superman 3, even though, because, yeah, there's no Lex Luthor present in the third film, these antagonists that we have, they were fine. I thought they did pretty good. You know, yeah, sure, they may not be the strongest villains in anything Superman, nowhere near up there, like, say, when it comes to, say, Luthor, or Zod, or Brainiac, or Lobo, but, you know, still, you know, bear with me. Yeah, because, Ross Webster and Vera, most prominently, you know, they're planning to do something devious, and with them discovering what Gus Gorman can do, yep, the opportunity comes, and by using Gus Gorman for what they're going to do. And basically, because they hire Gus to hack into the computer systems, basically, this time, by getting into hacking it and controlling this satellite dish, the satellite piece that's in space, which being referred to as Vulcan. And Vulcan, and there's a description of it, because, yeah, it's basically, yeah, it's used by Webster to manipulate weather patterns, and he's basically going to use Vulcan to do something devious and to provide, you know, storms and a tornado on Columbia. The reason being is, yeah, using it to destroy Columbia's coffee crop. Yeah, and as I read in the description / the story. And yeah, allowing him to corner the coffee market. And yeah, by ordering Gus to program the satellite to create a tornado. Yeah, because, you know, the reason why, because, yeah, coffee from Colombia, well, because, yeah, because, attempting to, okay, so yeah, because the reason being with Columbia, because, you know, he's pissed off about Columbia, and this has to do with money and such, you know, just, yeah, it doesn't sound that much interesting, I know, but, hey, I mean, it is what it is in the movie, but yeah, okay, but coming back to Clark, because, yeah, now by this point, he's now attended to the Smallville High School reunion, and those that attend, and most prominently, and whom we did see in the first Superman film, and this is where we finally get to see her, yeah, and be one of the main characters, Lana Lang. And yeah, even from, like, say, the days when Clark / Superman was, you know, a young kid, you know, he had feelings. He had feelings for Lana. And of course, this is before he met Lois Lane. So, and Lana Lang in Superman 3, being played by Annette O'Toole. And yeah, I think that, yeah, because with what Superman 3 had to offer with the character of Lana Lang, you know, was pretty good. I think that Annette O'Toole did pretty good with portraying Lana Lang. And not to mention, fun fact, Annette O'Toole would find herself in another piece of Superman material where she would get to play Martha Kent in the Smallville series on CW. Yeah, I'm sure most of you probably know that. And, yeah, and fun fact about Annette O'Toole, because, yeah, at that time, and when doing this movie, she didn't know that much of Christopher Reeve, and just out of nowhere for her, she was invited up to Christopher's place, and she got to meet his, like, girlfriend at the time, because, you know, as I'm sure you guys know, Christopher Reeve was in a relationship with this woman whom he met while working on the first 2 Superman films, and they fell in love. They had a few kids, and yeah, and with Annette O'Toole also meeting Christopher's kids, and taking her out for dinner, and doing something fun, getting tickets for a game or something. Just really shows that and with what Annette described about that Christopher Reeve, such a gentleman, a sweet, caring guy, and, because, again, the fact that Annette didn't know that much of Christopher, it's just amazing, and with what Annette specifically described, and maybe you know this too, yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, and I think that the chemistry between Lana and Clark, and even when, like, say, it's Lana and Superman, it's pretty well, and it's kind of getting there, but at a certain point, yeah, because when it comes up to, like, say, the 4th movie, yeah, it's just like, yeah, no Lana Lang. Just what happened? Because, like, this movie was technically building up to a possible romance and connection between Clark/Superman and Lana Lang. What happened? Just I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the reunion between Clark and Lana is pretty good, but even when, like, say, some jerk stepping in, and yeah, because knowing what this guy's like, and he had been like this, and I'm pretty sure because obviously his presence in the first Superman film, can't remember fully as of right now, but yeah, enter Brad. Brad being played by Gavin O'Hurley. Yeah, I think I'm getting his last name right. Brad, whom is trying to be like a ladies' man, and Lana knows that he's a huge pain, and even Brad giving Clark a hard time. Brad's trying to make a move on Lana, just, yeah. And the fact that it's also mentioned that Lana, had gotten out of a relationship with, I presume, her ex-husband, and, the father of Lana's son, because Lana's son that she has a few kids, and, because most prominently Ricky, being played by young Paul Kethler, I think I'm saying that right, but just, at the same time, I mean, because everything's going well with Clark and Lana, and Clark helping out Lana, and, he spends a good time in Smallville with Lana and her son, and, because even after when the high school reunion at Smallville finished, Lana and Clark, proceeded on cleaning up the mess, and, what would happen next for Clark and Lana, along with her son, and along with them, their family dog, Buster, because they go on a family picnic, and with Clark tagging along, and, the romance still building up between Clark and Lana, and even when, like, say, Ricky takes Buster for a walk to, mentioning on finding something to attack, like a rabbit or something, and, because, with Clark and Lana, kind of, it's getting there. But, because Lana at one point notices that oil/gas, from her car is leaking and such, and she tries to fix it. Well, Clark, with his super hearing, can hear Buster whimpering, because apparently Ricky had an accident. I guess he, like, tripped or something, and he got a cut. He got a cut on the side of his head in, like, the cornfield. And, well, with Ricky being unconscious, these tractors, that, like, they're making their way, because, to those kind of tractors to, do the cropping and such, it's one of them is making its way directly at Ricky, and Clark quickly, whipping on the Superman getup and thus saving Ricky. And, this is the first time where Superman interacts and meets with Ricky and Lana Lang and so on. And yeah, when Superman leaves and, well, Clark showing up and, you know, because he found Buster and so on, just, yeah. Alright, but to speed things up still, because, yeah, then, at one point, well, because, yeah, Gus being sent to Smallville by Webster, where, yeah, because there is a Websco building at Smallville. And, yeah, Gus arriving and, you know, in disguise to infiltrate and to get inside the building and to tamper with the computers and such, even when, like, say, you know, he did at one point have one encounter with Clark Kent. Yeah, this would be the first time that these two would cross paths, you know, the two main characters, and the fact that they would not connect until very later on in the movie, and just, yeah, but anyways. So, again, Gus, you know, getting a blue outfit and making his way to the building late that evening when it's closed. Brad happens to be there and actually is the security guard. And, you know, surprisingly, luckily for Gus, manages to convince Brad to let him in and offering some whiskey and bourbon and such. And yeah, getting Brad drunk, and once he's drunk and passed out, Gus takes the keys and infiltrates and hacks into the computers, messing with the computers all around the city and such, and, yeah, with money and, the traffic going haywire, because, yeah, from going green to red, and with the cars coming in, people just, yeah, even, like, the two stick figures on the go and stop, you know, digital sign, you know what I'm talking about, because, okay, you know what this is. You know what happens. Like, why? Why do they come to life? That's too much. That's too much comedy. Why? Why did that have to happen? It beats me. Not that I'm wanting to, you know, just be really upset by this, but it's just a head scratcher. Just, what's with that? Like, you know, just like, why? Yeah, again, because with the comedy and slapstick that's in this movie. But, you know, no hard feelings on Richard Lester. But, you know, anyways. But yeah, so, but eventually, yeah, because, and still, to speed things up some, yeah, eventually, Gus managing to, yeah, get access to the Vulcan satellite, and thus creating storms and a tornado in Colombia. And we see that happening in Colombia. You know, the fact there's a couple of people there that are touring Colombia, and there's a wedding that's happening, and just, yeah, just so much happening, and, yeah, because with, yeah, just a few things, but I mean, I don't know, I mean, I guess, like, it wasn't that funny or anything, it wasn't, you know, really that hilarious, just, you know, but, you know, still, it's, you know, what happens when the storm and tornado happen, yeah, it's intense. Yeah, because with it happening, and, well, mission accomplished for Webster, making that happen, and, you know, getting back on Columbia because of the coffee crop, yeah. Crop, just, yeah. Anyways, so, continuing. Then there was one moment where, yeah, Lana's son Ricky, invited Superman to his birthday party, because Ricky accidentally slipping out on, you know, talking about Superman and that he'd be there at his birthday party, just, yeah. And, well, Clark, you know, telling Lana that, you know, he knows Superman personally, and will see to it, arrange that for it to happen. And, well, you know, overall, because little does Lana know, of course, that Clark is Superman, and, yeah, Clark/Superman is more than happy to do so. Yeah. But, you know, even before that, because what happened in Colombia was taken care of by Superman. And when Gus came back to Metropolis, and on top of Webster's main building, you know, the tower, the rooftop literally has like a snowy hill, and where Webster can ski. That's interesting. I mean, not that I'm complaining, just, you know, hey, you know, some people would probably like to have something like that, you know what I mean? But anyways, And yeah, and also because, yeah, more on the antagonists, like I said, they're okay in this movie. And, I think that, yeah, the chemistry between all three of them and how, Webster and his sister, they treat Lorelei sometimes, could be, a bit funny at times. But yeah, when Gus comes back and basically informs Webster on what happened with Columbia. And apparently, because, yeah, he apparently witnessed this with what Superman was doing, and with him describing it to Webster. And yeah, this is where Pryor, he's being funny. But, yeah. Maybe to some, probably did get a few chuckles with that scene where, Gus is describing to Webster what happened and, taking a tablecloth and a pink tablecloth and pretending it's Superman's cape, and he starts flying and he turned the tornado upside down and and what he did in Columbia just, yeah. And of course, yeah, this upsets Webster, and, he's disappointed in Gus, but it's not Gus's fault. He did what he did, making the Vulcan satellite provide the tornadoes and such, at Columbia. But then for Superman to step in, just, yeah. And, then what the main villains plan to do next, this time they're going after Superman. Well, kryptonite is mentioned. And with the planet Krypton, even Gus knowing about this too, and even Gus explaining to them that Krypton was blown up years ago, and yes, of course, as we all know, that happened, and, and obviously, because, yeah, Lex Luthor was the first one to fully know everything about Superman when finding his Fortress of Solitude and, knowing about Superman's weakness, kryptonite. Well, he found out about that before finding Superman's fortress and up north. And, and then when word got out, obviously, about kryptonite, that being Superman's weakness, and somehow, and thanks to Gus once again, they managed to get their hands on some kryptonite, and thus, they're going to give it to Superman. Yeah. And, then there was a moment where Gus, he got on some skiers, and, he accidentally, slipped, and he literally, flew out of up top of the roof, and, yeah, making his way down, and he manages to survive this. And when he makes his way to the ground, to the surface, just, you've seen the movie, so you know. In reality, probably he wouldn't have survived that. But, this is fiction, so go figure. But yeah, and still, to speed things up some, because with, apparently Ricky's birthday happening, although it doesn't look really anything like a birthday party. Superman once again being there with, Lana and Ricky. But then, all the fun is interrupted when, the bad guys step in. It's just Gus and Vera, and in disguise as soldiers, and Gus acting like a drill sergeant and such, just, and again, this is where, Richard Pryor's being funny, and, even as the Nostalgia Critic described, acting like Bugs Bunny, but not really, just, it's just Richard Pryor being Richard Pryor. Yeah. Just some of this speech that he gives, and Vera just just shaking her head because Gus is not rolling this along. But eventually, because, pretending to reward and thank Superman for what he did in Smallville, and by giving him this green crystal. And you realize nobody questions about this, nor Superman, because it's a crystal, it's green. The obvious that it would be kryptonite, which it is. And it doesn't affect Superman. But it technically does, but very differently, because, what would happen next after all of that? Well, because even when, say, Gus calls up Webster about what happened, and, once again, Webster's disappointed in Gus, because he was supposed to kill Superman, obviously with the kryptonite, but, well, we didn't see the kryptonite do anything with, on Superman. It didn't have an effect on him. But when it does so, at a certain point, yeah, because Superman back at Lana's place and, well, yeah, something starts to happen to Superman, because an effect from the kryptonite that strikes on Superman, something just changes in him. And I feel, and I'm sure you guys would think so too, that this is where we actually get something pretty interesting and good in the third installment, where, yeah, Superman just starts to not be the Superman that we know so well, and the characters in this movie know Superman so well. Because when, like, at one point, Lana receives a phone call about something that happened at this bridge, and, yeah, there's trouble at this bridge, and, telling Superman that, you know, he should, go take care of it. But then Superman's like, you know, there's no rush, and remains for just a few minutes with Lana, which, you know, obviously Superman would immediately get there, but he doesn't. And this is where, yeah, it just feels, Superman feels intimidating, and just, yeah, just something's really off. And obviously we know because, yeah, that kryptonite, whatever it did to him, and apparently because, some oil got into the kryptonite? Yeah, because some oil got into the kryptonite, and because I read it, and yeah, it's very interesting. And, well, because, yeah, eventually Superman does take off to help out what's going on at the bridge, but he showed up late. And, yeah, his services to help out on this scene that's happening on the bridge are not required. And this is where, yeah, Superman starts to act strange and not the Superman we know so well. And again, the characters in the movie, yeah, everybody's starting to realize, like, yeah, something's up with Superman. And, yeah, even when, like, say, Lowry, yeah, because, she at one point, Lorelei, sorry, yeah, she does at one point a little later invite Superman to, like, a date and such. Just, yeah, I mean, because, yeah, Lorelei, you know, obviously finds Superman attractive. So, and there's a bit of good of her. But, yeah, of course, the fact that she's serving with the bad guys, just, yeah. But, yeah, with Superman, and, yeah, might as well stick with that, because, talking about it, the rest. Yeah, Superman starts to go crazy and ballistic, and, yeah, even slowly but surely, and up to a certain point, and if you notice, his wardrobe, his suit, the tone and color of his suit, of red, yellow, and blue, start to go dark, because, yeah, with what is happening to Superman, even, like, his skin color, and so on, just, yeah, nice attention to detail right there. Because, yeah, what Superman does, like, yeah, in fact, he was told by Loretti to, and when, because, yeah, she was on top of the Statue of Liberty, Superman showing up, and, you know, don't expect me to save you, because those days are over. But, yeah, I mean, eventually he does, and, yeah, they have a talk at, Webster's place on top of the rooftop of his building, and, well, yeah, obviously, she told him what to specifically do, like, because, yeah, Lorelei, yeah, telling him to go to this ship out in the ocean and to basically tear a portion of it open, letting out this oil. Actually, no, because it was tar that got into the kryptonite. But yeah, just overall, because, yeah, some black stuff coming out of the ship, and, yeah, it's out in the ocean, just, yeah, that's not a good sign, and for what Superman's doing. And, yeah, and also because, like, we have the Captain, and we, have a few others, like, yeah, and obviously they would be credited, obviously, yeah, but, alright, but anyways, just, yeah, and other stuff that Superman does, Golly, the Leaning Tower. He straightens up the Leaning Tower. It's no longer leaning, and the Pisa Vendir, yeah, being played by John Bluthal, witnessing this, and he was, putting out these, miniatures of the Leaning Tower, merchandise of the Leaning Tower, and by seeing Superman straighten it up, yeah, he's unhappy with Superman, just, with what he does, with what he does, calling out to Superman. And then there's a moment where, at the Olympics, Superman blows out the fire that was, the torch that was to light the fire and so on, because when it comes to the Olympics. And the Olympic runner being played by David, Felder, if I'm saying his last name right. Oh, yeah, and the tanker captain, that's right, yeah, because that's what it was, a tank ship. Yeah, the tanker captain being played by Robert Betty, if I'm saying his last name right, yeah. And also, we're at the Leaning Tower, because this street sweeper being right there and witnessing this too. Yeah, just, it just, I don't know, because even when I did a rewatch, I did chuckle on, say, when it came to Superman messing with the Leaning Tower. But at the same time, this is a serious matter for what's happening to the character of Superman. But just, yeah. Superman doing these awful things. And when, yeah, even, say, the people at Metropolis, they're terrified to go near Superman. And even when at one point, Lana, was and Ricky, were interested in visiting Metropolis, and even when Lana called up the Smallville airport, if there's any tickets left, for and any seats available for the next flight of Smallville. Oh, and the street sweeper, because I meant to mention who it is. Yeah, street sweeper being played by George Chisholm, if I'm saying the last name right, but yeah. But yeah, and just again, with what's happening to Superman, the Krypton having affected him in this different way, not, killing him and just putting him down, just, what I mean? Just, yeah. Well, because, when it comes to kryptonite, there are some rare pieces of kryptonite that can do some different effects on Superman and the others that are, of course, allergic to kryptonite. Yeah, anyways. And also, for the main villains, because, yeah, they are starting to assemble and build, and with the help of Gus, this supercomputer at the Grand Canyon, and this cave that, the supercomputer is in, and, because because the supercomputer, it's a very interesting, machine that is brought to life and built and set up, just, But, at the same time, because, not that really interesting, because, again, with how the movie turned out, but anyways. And it's referred to as the ultimate computer. Okay, but yeah. But it's also technically referred to as the supercomputer, but yeah, anyways. And yeah, because, obviously, to best put it the supercomputer doing more devious things for the main antagonists, most prominently Webster. But yeah, even, at a certain point, them getting tired of, Gus's, clumsiness and stuff like that, despite him being a, computer genius, still. But anyways, so, yeah. And still, to speed things up some, because what happens in Metropolis? Well, as I said, the citizens of Metropolis, getting uncomfortable and terrified, with Superman and not wanting to get up close to him. And when Lana and her son arrive and see what's going on, especially Ricky seeing, what the commotion is, and seeing Superman in this bar having a drink and, just causing some disturbance and breaking some of the glass, even using his lasers to melt the mirror, because, tired of looking at his self in the reflection of the mirror. Just everybody viewing him, just, being a being a freak and so on. Just, yeah, not the Superman that they remembered and loved. And Ricky is the only one who knows that something's wrong with Superman, that he's sick and is just not himself, yeah. And Ricky calling out to Superman. And Ricky knows that, well, Superman can hear him, and Superman, when he flew away, because he can still hear the voices of Ricky, then he finds himself at this dumpster place, and just, shouting, and this causes the workers to scatter, and then what happens next is a very interesting moment, and a pretty good moment, that happens in Superman 3, where Superman actually splits with Clark Kent. Clark Kent emerges out of Superman, so we have two, Clark Kent / Superman beings, because, yeah, just that whole sequence where, by this point, Superman has become evil, and is coming face-to-face with Clark Kent, and the battle between Clark Kent and Superman, it was really good, and the fact that this entire sequence, only having Christopher Reeve, and the fact that he is duoing himself in this sequence, playing two characters at the same time, and some shots where they are together on screen, well, they're okay, and just, the best they can do at that time, but, still. And I think because, yes, shots where, a body double standing in for either, say, Superman or Clark Kent is pretty good. And just, Clark Kent taking quite a beating from Superman, but eventually, when Clark Kent then gets back at Superman, even say at one point strangling him, even before that happens, Superman throwing at him in one of these machines that could literally destroy him, because destroying the garbage and stuff, but nope, Clark surviving that and getting his strength back and thus taking down evil Superman vanishes, and the Superman that we know and love so well is back, and Clark whipping out the Superman suit, showing this, and the iconic Superman theme playing, this is where, everything is back to normal, and Superman's back. And when we see Superman restoring everything that he messed up on, fixing up the ship, and even, a few other things that he does, just, And as for the Leaning Tower, actually that comes in very later, so But and, it's not established later on, because I'm guessing that, obviously, the citizens of Metropolis, including Lana and Ricky, well, they somehow knew that Superman was back to his good old self again, so, okay. Anyways. And Superman then going to confront the antagonists, and, they left him a recorded message on where he will he will find them and where to locate them at, which being at the Grand Canyon, because by this point, the Ultimate / supercomputer has been set up inside of one of the caves at the Grand Canyon, but also, they've set up some booby traps for Superman when he arrives, and, and still, with Gus being there, and they're by this point treating him very poorly, and, once they finish their business outside of the canyon, they make their way back inside the cave, with the Ultimate / supercomputer, and when Superman shows up, because, that's when they set off these missiles, and a jet, and Superman dodging all of them. I mean, he does at one point get hit by one of them, but still, he manages to, of course, survive it, because he's Superman. And by the way, because them firing the missiles and such, well, because them seeing this on a monitor, some animation that we get from Atari, you know what I'm talking about, and apparently, because, at that time, Atari was developing / working on a tie-in game with Superman 3, which that didn't come to be. Probably for the best. So this portion we get of what Atari did for Superman 3. It's in the movie. Yeah, very interesting. But yeah, just like, I mean, yeah, because like that sequence where, yeah, Superman is dodging the rockets and missiles, and yeah, and when, you know, Superman makes his way inside of the cave, confronting the antagonists, all four of them, including Gus, because yeah, Superman being well aware of what Gus has done. And yeah, well, them using the super/ultimate computer on Superman, like, you know, firing a few things at him, and when it comes to, say, using kryptonite, you know, that taking him down. And by that point, Gus, and even Lorelei, yeah, because she too, obviously, you know, growing concern over Superman and that, you know, he's gonna get killed and he won't survive that long. And Gus taking it upon himself where, yeah, by this point, he won't have any more of this, being involved in evil doings and such. And his attempt to shut down the ultimate/supercomputer, he does so. And with the keys and everything, just, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he successfully shuts it off. But it just so happens to reactivate itself. And, yeah, it's basically coming to life on its own, gaining a personality of its own, and feeding itself, just, yeah, and the kryptonite being activated once again. And when the villains are struggling to be in control of the supercomputer, when the super/ultimate computer takes advantage of our main and villains, even like, yeah, zapping a few of them, even turning Vera into this cybernetic being, just... Okay, I presume, like, that's something that I guess is in the Superman comics or something? I don't know, because I think I heard something about that, but just, yeah. Okay, because, yeah, it just happens, but, yeah, but it doesn't last that long, because, yeah, she's, yeah, even with Vera turning into this, like, half-cybernetic being, doesn't stand a chance between Superman and Superman trying to take down the ultimate/supercomputer, but just, you know, having no luck trying to take it down, up to when Superman actually leaves for a moment, then comes back with a bottle of acid. Remember the acid we saw very early on in the film at the atomic plant building? Yep. Using this acid that, yep, in the end, it destroys the super/ultimate computer once and for all, and it even causes an avalanche, you know, inside of the cave, and, yeah. And man, because, yeah, the super/ultimate computer was going to do something of its own, you know, not follow in the ways of Webster and such, and, yeah, just causing some mayhem outside, but just, yeah, in the end, Superman managed to take it down. But not just Superman, it's also thanks to Gus. This is where Gus did redeem himself, yeah. And everything's good now with Gus, and, yeah. And, well, I mean, all of the antagonists, they survived, so, yeah. And we actually don't see them afterwards, because, well, as Superman mentioned a little later on, you know, they'll be seeing the police, and, yep, because they're pretty much going to be ending up in jail, yep. And then, yeah, so everything is okay now, and a moment where, and it's in the poster, technically, because, yeah, in one of the posters, where, yeah, Superman carries Gus in the air, you know, Gus is flying with Superman, and, yeah, so, again, it's good to see that, you know, everything's good now with Gus, he's become a much better man, he's been redeemed, and, you know, he too became a hero and, you know, helping out Superman some. And Superman, of course, finishing the rest, you know, taking on the ultimate/supercomputer. And at one point, Superman drops off Gus to where, you know, he can get a job with, once again, doing something with computers. But Gus, you know, he's going to be doing something else. And, you know, and this time he's just going to prefer walking to take a bus, you know, the next 10 miles. So, yeah. And at one point, because at this, like, coal mining location, yeah, because that's where Superman dropped him off at, Gus, Superman discovers this very beautiful diamond, and it's the perfect size for, yeah, and if it's obvious, he's going to give it to Lana. So, yeah, Superman and Gus, they say their goodbyes, and Gus, you know, again, is going to walk this time to take a bus, and yeah, that's the last we see of Gus. What a way for his character to go out in this movie. I mean, again, he was redeemed and such, but still. Anyways, because we don't see what he does next, and of course, nor do we see him in the 4th installment. But anyways, and then another moment where Clark visits Lana and Ricky once again, and Clark tells Lana that Superman is unable to attend to dinner, and Clark coming there on behalf of Superman. But again, little does Ricky and Lana know that Clark is Superman. And Clark surprises Lana with something that Superman wanted to give to Lana, a ringed diamond, giving it to her, and it's the right size, it fits. And then Brad shows up once again, and he thinks that Clark has proposed to Lana. And by this point, Brad, he's about to punch Clark, but he misses, and And then Brad is taken care of. He accidentally gets on a food cart and then makes his way to the elevator. And by the way, because I didn't talk about Brad that much, because Brad, we know from the beginning, and when we first see him, he's a dick. He is. And there was one moment where, I didn't mention this, where Clark is with Lana and Ricky. They're bowling, and Brad trying to step in and help out with Ricky with, using a bowling ball, but Clark stepping in and helping, Ricky how to handle the bowling ball, how to hold it properly. And, Clark was almost about to sneeze. But thankfully, when he sneezed, it caused the bowling ball to go really fast and pretty much destroy, boom, all of the bowling pins. That's good for Rick, because, by that point, Ricky being supposedly really good at bowling. But little did they realize that, that was Clark, Superman, that did that. But not intentional, but just, not intentional of Clark/Superman's. But up to the end of the movie, because, back at the Daily Planet, we see that Lana now resides in Metropolis and has a position in the Daily Planet. Good for her. And Lois coming back after her vacation, and it seems like she did get a tan, and she gets to meet Lana, and noticing the beautiful diamond ring and such, and pointing out that, Clark gave it to her, and Lois is surprised by this. Then what happens next? The very last thing that happens is, Superman finally fixing up the Leaning Tower. And by this point, the guys selling the miniature statues of the Leaning Tower, now they're straight. But with Superman coming in and fixing it, because twice the poor guy selling that stuff, just breaking them and borrowing the sweeper from the street sweeper and just breaking all the other, model statues of the Leaning Tower. And once again, the final shot where we see Superman flying in space, smiling for the camera, and then boom, the credits roll. Superman 3, again, it is what it is. It's not the best in the Superman films, and for the first 4, but just, overall, for me, I find it okay, and I say okay. Again, I understood what this movie was trying to do with its storyline and such, but if the writing was much better and so on, maybe. And if Richard Pryor, if they had let poor Richard Pryor, done what he wanted to do for his character in the 3rd film, wanting to do something serious, but again, they just told him to be funny. And just, poor Richard Pryor, because it wasn't his fault. And the same goes for Christopher Reeve and the cast. They tried their best, but, in the end, just, bad luck for the 3rd installment. And, the Salkins, they, like I said, this would come back to bite/haunt them, and, I'm pretty sure, Superman 3 taught them a very good lesson, and the same goes for Richard Lester, just, and with the Salkins, handpicking Lester to take on the position of directing the rest of Superman 2 and this, overall. Superman 3, the story, okay, like I said, the characters, new faces that step in, the antagonists, Lana Lane being one of the main characters, Richard Pryor as Gus Gorman. Richard was okay. There were a few things in the movie that I thought he did okay in, and did pretty good at. The whole thing about the ultimate / supercomputer, not bad, I guess, and also the romance between Lana and Clark / Superman, most prominently on Clark and Lana, that was pretty good too. Clark revisiting Smallville, and I forgot to point this out, apparently, because it was established that by this point, Clark's human mother, Martha, had sadly passed away. Well, I mean, because of the fact we didn't see her after, the first Superman film, and from there on, so much for her. And, the other characters like Ricky, Brad, etc., they're okay as well. And again, the antagonists from Ross Webster, Lorelei and Ross's sister Vera, okay villains. The intense, full, and action-packed stuff, okay and good too. And, well, especially one of the pretty good things to come from this is, the whole thing of, the split personalities of Clark Kent and Superman, and when Superman goes to the dark side and so on. That was pretty good. Not that bad. That came from the third installment. The slapstick, the funny moments, there were a few that were okay, but there were too much, and they just didn't work. But the serious and emotional moments, they were good too. And the music and score, and with the reuse, rightfully so, of the music that John Williams wrote, and of course, most prominently, the Superman theme, all good too. There were a few bits of music that, I don't know, because they were fine, but it just didn't, I don't know, I feel like some of it didn't work. Some of the bits of music that plays in certain parts, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, and if you feel the same way. But overall, Superman 3, it is what it is, sadly. What more do I have to really say? And I'm giving Superman 3, well, it's on my mind, 5 out of 10 stars. Yes, 5 out of 10 stars for Superman 3. And what about you guys? What did you think of Superman 3 itself? I'm pretty sure you all are probably on the same page where, not that good. But maybe some of you thought it was okay, like me. And if you're on the same page as me, and, if there was anything from the third installment that you liked, thought was okay, like, well, most prominently, the whole personality split of Superman and Clark Kent, Did you find Richard Pryor maybe okay some, and with the antagonists, Lana Lane being in this, and with what else was going on in this movie, and with the whole thing of the computer stuff, and what more do I have to really say? But again, what do you think of Superman 3 itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Superman 3. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward. And I will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, of course, continuing on with the Superman review marathon. And, you know what's next, because, as I said, Superman 3 would be just the beginning of what was happening to the franchise. And, if things couldn't have gotten worse, well, they would, very much so, in the 4th installment. And that, of course, being The Quest for Peace. Until then, again, stay tuned for that later tonight. My review of Superman 4, the fourth and final installment of the Superman films with Christopher Reeve as the title character. Just, yeah, again, stay tuned for that. Take care, and peace out.